to the main memory. So now the main memory is divided into three further parts, okay, which is known as heap, stack, and there is another section which is code section. So as I have told you, and we know that whatever programs that we write, all that program is stored inside your main memory or the primary memory, okay. And then according to what inputs you want to get, what files you want to use, and all the operations are performed there, and then you get the output. So your program will be stored in your code section, and whatever variables that you make, and those variables contain some values, okay. So all those variables will be stored inside your stack part of the memory. And the global variables that you declare, I know that many of you might not be knowing about variables and global variables, but the next topic is that only, so there I will explain you this in detail. So the global variables, they are stored in heap, and even when you do the dynamic memory allocation, that is also done inside heap. So now what is the difference between heap and stack? So the difference is that stack is more tightly under control of CPU, but heap is that part of memory which can be manipulated easily by the users. Okay, so we can manipulate them very easily, but stack is under control of CPU. Okay, so now let us have a look at the data types that we have. So this is a chart where I have shown all the data types that we have in C++. So we have primitive data types, which means that in-house or living data types which live inside C++. So these are the primitive data types, are the data types which are provided by the compiler to you by default. Okay. And other than that, we have user-defined data types and derived data types. Okay. So we'll today we'll study about enum as well in user-defined data types, and these data types we will study in the coming sessions, because for these data types we need some other knowledge as well. And class is what C++ is all about. Okay, so now let us discuss primitive data type. In primitive is further classified into three different data types, that is bool, integer, and floating point. Okay, so bool is what? A bool is a data type which will return either true or false. So that is used for only this part. Now integer. Integer data type is further classified into two data types, that is int and char. Int means integer, char means character. Now the question is that how can character be part of integer? Okay, so I'll answer this in detail about how character is the part of integer data type. Okay, because you should keep this thing in your mind that whatever we write in our program, that has to be processed by the CPU, and CPU understands only binary language. So whatever we write, that has to be converted into numbers finally. So that is why character is also part of integer, but we'll do some calculations on that as well. Now we have another data type which is floating point. Floating point simply means that we use numbers in decimals in real life. Like we can have 5.6, 7.8, whatever decimal form. So floating point means decimal numbers. Now decimal numbers can be either float or double. Now there is no much difference between float and double. The only difference is of the size. Float offers you a little bit less size than double. Okay, so we'll have a look on that as well. So the thing is that you should learn all these data types, or at least you should remember these data types, because if you don't know about data types, how can you write programs, right? So we should have a clear understanding of all the data types and we should know about them. Now here you can see I have provided a table where I have written the data types that we have. I'm talking about primitive only, and the size that these data type have, and the range, what is the maximum number we can store in these data types, because in computer there is nothing infinite. Okay, they are limited to something, they have some limited size of memory. So let's talk about int. Okay, so int can be either of size 2 byte or 4 byte. So how can it be of two different sizes? See, if you have heard about turbo c, okay, that runs in DOS shell, so that will treat integer as 2 bytes, whereas nowadays any compiler that you use, they have integer as 4 bytes only. Okay, but yes, in my explanation, when I will be explaining the things, I will treat integer as 2 bytes only, because that is easier for me to draw the diagrams and do the calculations. Otherwise, 4 bytes will be a bit complicated. But yes, the calculation remains the same. And its range is -32768 to 32767. Now, the thing to note over here is, here we have 6 8 and here we have 6 7. What is the reason? Why do we have one character extra at this part and here we have one less? So I'll tell you just now. Then we have float, which is of size 4 bytes, double 8 bytes, and character of 1 byte. And similarly, bool is undefined. Why is it undefined? Because see, bool can give either true or false. So it takes even less than one byte. So that is why it is undefined. So that's the only reason. Now let us read about integer in detail, that why one number is more on the negative side and one is less on the positive side. So I will treat integer as 2 bytes only. So now we know that 1 byte is equal to 8 bits, correct? So as I'm saying that I will treat integer as 2 bytes, it means I should take how many bits? 16 bits, correct? So, so here I have 0 to 15. Now 0 to 15 means what? 16 bits. And you can see that the last bit, this last bit is known as most significant bit. This is known as most significant bit. Okay. And this first bit will be known as least significant bit. Okay. You should keep this thing in mind. Now, the last bit that is used to store the sign, that is why it is known as sign bit. Because see, integer can be either positive number or it could be a negative number. So in order to differentiate between which number is positive, which number is negative, out of these 16 bits, one bit is reserved for storing the sign of the number. Okay. So if this bit is reserved for storing the sign of a number, it means that we are left with only 15 bits. So we can utilize them only. So it means that 2 to the power 15 is the maximum number that we can store in int. And 2 to the power 15 means what? 32768. 2 to the power 15 is equal to 32768. So this is the maximum number that we can store in the data type int. Okay, now let us see how we get one extra and here we get one less. So I'll tell you the reason. So it is because, see, when you will have to count the numbers, you will count from a 0 on positive side. It will be from 0 to 3, 2, 7, 6, 7. Okay. And on the negative side, it will be -0 to 3, 2, 7, 6, 7 again. Okay, this is like that. Because in computer, we count from 0. So on positive side, we can have these many numbers: 0, 2, 3, 2, 7, 6, 7. And on negative side, we have -0 to 3, 2, 7, 6, 7. Now the thing to note is that -0 is not a number, because positive 0 or 0 negative 0 is 0 only, right? So that is why, just because of this sign bit, we have one bit extra on the negative side. So what we will do is we'll erase this negative 0, and instead of that, we'll add one more bit on this side. So because of that sign bit, which is reserved for storing the sign of a number, we get one bit extra on the negative side. So we have 0 to 3 to 6, 7. And on the negative side, we have 0 to -3 to 7, 6, 8. Similarly, when we talk about char, that is, see, character has a size of 1 byte only. Okay. So 1 byte means 8 bits. So similarly, in case of character as well, we have the most significant bit, which is the last bit, as sign bit. This will store the sign of numbers. Whereas the first one is known as the least significant bit. Least significant bit. Okay. So when you will store the number, so you have only 7 bits free, which you can utilize and store the numbers in them. So it means that we have 2 to the power 7, which is the largest number that we can store. Okay, let me, after this, I'll tell you. So 2 power 7 will get you 128. Will get you 128. So this is the maximum number that you can store. Now, same concept is applied in case of character as well. So it is 0 to 1 to 7, because we are counting from 0. So this is for the positive side. And for similarly for the negative side, we have minus 0 to 127. Now, similarly, as we have minus 0, but that is not a number, so this bit will be added and we have 128. So one number is extra on the negative side. Now, if in a program you try to store, uh, like in case of integer, the maximum number, positive maximum number that you can store is 32767. Now, what if I try to store 32768? Then your answer will be minus 32768. Now, what is this? Let us understand. See, uh, just a minute. Let me erase this and I'll tell you. So, just like in a clock, here you have 12, okay? And on this side, you have 1. Now, when in a clock, you have 12 o'clock, it is the time. And if you add 1 to it, if you step one step forward, then what happens is, will you get 13? No, you get 1. You get 1. And what if I step one step backwards from 1? I subtract 1. Will I get 0? No, I will get 12. Okay, because I'm working in a cyclic order. So I can never get 13. After 12, I will have to go on 1 only. And after 1, if I, before 1, if I subtract 1 from 1, instead of 0, I will get 12. Okay, which is mathematically incorrect. But as we're moving in cyclic order, so this is the logical thing. So similar is the case with integers as well, or in any data type you do. So the maximum positive number is till 6 7 only, and if I try to add 3 2 7 6 8, then it will similarly just like a clock, I am stepping one step forward, so it will be on, it will come back to this number only, and on the screen you will see this number. Okay, similarly if you try to write minus 32769, then you will be reverted back to the positive number. Your screen will show 32767. So this is the concept. This is how uh, the range works. Okay, and this is also known as overflow. Now on Google you can search for the problems that are faced by the world just because of the integer overflow. You can read about it. So there has been many plane crashes, and uh, there are during rocket launching, the mission was failed just because of integer overflow. So you can read about it. So that is a very important concept that every programmer should know. Okay, so now after that, as I was earlier, I said that character is a part of integer. Okay, so let me explain how it is a part of integer. Okay, let us see that. So see, whatever we write in a program, whatever alphabets or anything that we write in a computer, that has to be stored inside the memory, right? And it has to be processed by CPU, and CPU understands only binary. And in binary we have only two numbers, which is 0 and 1. And after all, they are numbers, so whatever we provide, they should be stored in the form of integers only, right? So there is a body which is known as ASCII, or let me get some more space. Okay, yes. So there is a body which is known as ASCII, or you can pronounce it as ASCII as well, whatever you want to say. So this is known. This means that American Standards Code for Information Interchange. Okay, C is there, American Standards Code for Information Interchange. So this ASCII body has provided, has given some codes to the numbers and alphabets and all the special characters that you see on your keyboard. So whatever is written on your keyboard, they're actually a figures. Okay, so we identify them. Suppose if you're pressing A, so you understand it as A, but for the computer that is just a picture. Okay, so when you press A, so inside computer, A is not sent. Instead of A code is sent. That code has been assigned by this ASCII. So let us see what is that code. So when you have capital letters, let's say capital A, that is given a code which is 65. Just a second. This is given a code which is 65, right? Similarly, B, capital B, just pay attention to my words that I'm saying. I'm saying capital B. So that is given a code which is 66. And so on. When you will move on to Z, that is assigned a code which is 90. 90. Okay, so that was for capital letters. Similarly, for small letters, we have small a is equal to small a. When you press small a, then you will get 97. This is the code that has been given. And so on. When you will move on to small z, this is small z, then the code is 122. Okay. Now, even the numeric keypad that you have on your keyboard. So when you press 0, this 0 has also been assigned a code, and that code is 48. That code is 48. Similarly, for 1, when you press 1, actually you're sending another code. That code is 49. Okay, and so on till 9. Okay, so 9 has been assigned a code which is 57. Now, I will suggest you one thing, that from this table you should remember the size and the range for integer data type and character data type. This is at least. If you want to remember for float and double as well, if you can, you can definitely learn it. But integer and character you should remember. Okay, now this range that I have written, this is for 2 bytes only. Now, as you know, the calculations you can calculate for 4 bytes as well. Okay, so this will be a bit more larger. So, but integer and character, that is must. You should learn these. And also these character codes. On Google, you can search for ASCII table. There you will get the table for all the codes and all the symbols, all the alphabets, all the numbers that you have. All the codes will be given in that table. But you should remember at least the code for A, capital A, small a, and 0. Because if you know the codes of these, you can calculate for the successive characters. Okay, now let us talk about modifiers, because as now we know about data types and all, so let us talk about modifiers. Only then we will be able to make some programs, because they are really very very important. Okay, so what are modifiers? What are modifiers? So modifier are of two types: unsigned and long. Unsigned, unsigned and long. Long, long. So these are the two types of modifiers. Okay, now with the help of these modifiers, what you can do is, with the help of modifiers, you can modify the data types that you have as per your requirements. So you have integer data type. This is the integer data type. Now you know that integer data type can store negative numbers as well as positive numbers, and its range is limited to this particular thing only. Okay, but what if you want to store only positive numbers? Only positive numbers. But if you, even if you will try to store positive number, the maximum number is this only. So that is a great fault. If in case you want to store even larger number, much larger than that, then what you should do? Then in that case, you have an option. You can use the data type like this. Okay, you can say un unsigned int. This unsigned int. Okay. Now, what is the speciality of unsigned int? When you write unsigned int, so its earlier size is what? 32767. Okay. This is for the positive numbers. So just double it. So your size will increase in case of unsigned int, and that will be 65535. This is the size. So now you can see, earlier you were having 32767, and after using unsigned int, this data type, your size is double, more than that what you were having. And this is from 0 to 65535. But there is very important thing to note, that unsigned int will not be able to store negative numbers. So if you are using unsigned int, then you should be very sure that in your program you will not be requiring any negative numbers, and you need only positive numbers. And it might be the case that you need some greater positive numbers, so you should use unsigned int. Now, instead of unsigned int, you can also have unsigned char. I have not written the unsigned word completely, but it is unsigned char. Okay, so when you write unsigned char, then your size will increase, and it will become 255. Earlier it was 127. Okay, including the negative and the positive. So what happens is just add these two and you will get 255. You have doubled it. Your size will double, and it is only for positive uh, positive characters in case of char. So this is the speciality of unsigned char. So that is why every programmer should be having a complete knowledge about all the data types in order to make his program optimized and efficient, and so that the program, because why because we need know that memory is very expensive. Okay, so we should not waste the memory. So that is why you should have complete knowledge about the data types. So this was about unsigned. But the most important thing to keep in your mind is that unsigned can only be used with integer and character. You cannot have anything like unsigned float or unsigned double. It is not possible. This is a kind of rule that you can use unsigned with int only and unsigned with char only. No other data type you can use. Okay, with unsigned. Now let us have a look at long modifier. This was about unsigned modifier. Now let us have a look at long modifier. Okay, so in case of long, you can have long int. So as I was saying, that integer in case of turbo C, it will use 2 byte size, and in case of all other compilers, it will take 4 byte. Right? It will take 4 byte. So let us suppose you are using turbo C. So integer will use how much size? 2 byte. Correct? So once you write long int, then its size will increase, and it will increase to 4 bytes. It will increase to 4 bytes. Or if you are using modern compilers, which I hope everybody is using, so in normal case integer will use 4 bytes. So after using long int, it will use 8 bytes. It will use 8 bytes. Okay, so now 4 bytes or 8 bytes, this will depend upon which compiler that you are using. Either it is turbo C or you are using some other compilers. Okay, and not only long int, but you can also have long double. So earlier, double has the size of what? 8 bytes. Now, after using long, it will use 10 bytes. 10 bytes. So this will provide you more size. Okay, this will provide you to store much larger numbers. Okay, now another important thing to note over here is that you cannot have something like long float, because see, if you will try to use long float will mean what? It is equivalent to double only. And if you have double, so just keep this thing in mind that long float is not there is nothing like long float. So instead of long float, you should use double. So but if you need still larger memory, still a larger value to store, then you should write long double, so that you can store much larger numbers. Now, so with this, I can say that we can understand that modifiers are limited to some data types only. We cannot use modifiers with any data type of our choice. So this was all about data types. Now let us move on to variables. Let's have a look at variables. What are variables? So variables are just names which are given to data. Okay, because just in our home, uh, let's take an example of a pen. Now in a refill, you can just put ink. You can fill only ink. You cannot put something else because it is meant to store that only. So similarly, we have variables and we use data types for the variables. Just in mathematics, when we have fx is equal to some polynomial equation, so what is that x? That x is a variable. Okay, so similarly in programming, when we use variables, those variables have a particular data type. And suppose if you have int x, then in that x you can only store integer values. You can only store integer values. So variable is just a place where we can store the values that we want, depending upon what kind of data type that you have used. Okay, so now let me tell you about what are the valid variables that we can use, because there's a, so if you write x, just a minute. Now, if you write x1, so this is a valid variable. But if you try to write 1x, that is invalid. There is, so it means that when you are writing the name of variables, you cannot start the name of variable with some numbers. That will be invalid. So instead of that, you should use x1. You can use any word. After that, you can apply some numbers. That is a valid. But you cannot start a variable name with the 1. That will be invalid. And let us say you want to use a variable roll number. This is valid. But you cannot use a variable like this, roll space number. This is invalid. So in variables, we cannot apply space as well. So, but if you want to show spaces, then you should use roll underscore number. This will represent space. You can use that. But also, and you can also start a variable like this, underscore roll and then underscore number. This is valid. Now, also, underscore is a special character. So other than this underscore, you cannot use any other special character while writing the names of your variables. So uh, just keep in your mind that you cannot start the variable name with some numeric value, and you cannot provide some spaces in your variables, and you cannot use any other special character other than this underscore in your variables. That will be invalid. Okay. Now let's move on to major topic for today, which is operators. Okay. So what are operators? These are operators are predefined in C++. Okay. And we can use them to perform certain calculations. And those calculations can be either arithmetic calculations or relational or logical. So depending upon that, we can use any type of operators that we want according to our requirements. Now, each operator has a special symbol. Okay, so we should. Uh, so let's first talk about arithmetic operators. Okay, so you know how to use plus. We can have two variables. Let us say you have a variable a which is equal to 5, and you have variable b which is equal to 10. What you can do is in another variable c, you can store the value of these a plus b, and you will get the answer. Correct? You can get the answer. You're simply adding. So similar is the case with subtraction. Subtraction is very easy. You can subtract a from b or b from a. So similarly, you will get the sign of the values. Then you have multiply. Okay. But the new thing is division and this percent sign, which we call as percent, but in technical terms, it is known as mod operator. Okay. So let us see how this mod operator works. Okay. So let me give you an example. And then you will be able to differentiate between this division operator and this mod operator. So let us suppose you have a number 10, and that is stored in A, and you have another variable B which is having the value, let's say 2. Okay, now you are writing A divided by B. So it means what? You are dividing 10 by 2. So how we do the division? So we do the division like this. We write 10 and we divide the numbers like this. I divide by 2. So 2 fives are 10. So here you will write 10. Okay. Here you will write 10 and your remainder is 0. Now, now the thing to note here is that this 10 is what? Dividend. This 2 is what? This is divisor. This 5 is what? Quotient. And this 0 which we get over here is remainder. So when you divide a number with this operator, with this division operator, your answer will be 5. But if you write A mod B, then in this case, you are doing 10 mod 2. So when you use this mod operator, you don't get quotient, you get the remainder as your answer. So in this case, the remainder is 0. So your answer will be 0. And these two operators, or I should say this mod operator, is very, very important. You will be using very frequently in your programs. It is very, very useful, and you should know the difference between these two. Similarly, uh, have a look at this relational operator. In relational operator, we have many symbols like less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to, or equal to equal to. Now, the thing to note over here is equal to an assignment operator which is equal to. So what is the difference between these? See, relational operators are the operators used for comparing the two values, values. So let us say you have a variable a which is equal to, let's say, 3. You have variable b which is equal to, let's say, 2, and c variable that is equal to 3. Okay. Now, if you will write A equal to B, okay, A equal, first let us understand from here only. When I'm writing A equal to 3, it means what? I'm using the assignment operator. So it means that whatever is there present on the right hand side, assign it onto the left hand side. So here I have 3 on the right hand side, so this value will be given to A. Similar is the case with B and C. Now what if I write A equal to B? Obviously A is not equal to B, but this is not the meaning of this equal to sign. It means that whatever is on the right hand side, assign it to B, give it to left hand side. So B is equal to 2, so I am trying to say A is equal to 2. So now A will become 2. So now if you will print the value of A, you will get the answer as 2. Okay, but what if you would have used A equal to B? Now, this will not give you some value printed on your screen. It means that you're comparing. Is A equal to B? No, it is not. So if it is not, it means false. So it will give you false. But if I would have written A equal to C, so both of them are 3, so they are equal. So I'm measuring whether they are equal or not. So yes, they are equal. So you get true. Okay. So likewise, we have other operators as well, and we'll discuss everything today. So now let us move on to precedence of operator. We should understand which operator is given higher precedence, higher preference. So this is a table, and let me erase this. So here in precedence of operator, I have written this bracket, these brackets, which is written, which is given the value 3, multiply, divide, and mod operator, which is 2. So it means that from top to bottom, the first one, this bracket has the highest precedence. Okay. And this plus and minus, this is having the lowest precedence. So with this table, when you move from top to bottom, you are moving from highest to lowest. So in this equation that I have written over here, x is equal to a plus b multiplied by c minus d divided by e. So how will you solve this question? So in this question, what do we do is, first, let us look into the table. Let us look, there is associativity also, I will tell you. So first, let us look into the table, how we have to solve it. So here we can see plus, multiply, minus, and divide operators, okay? So we can see that this multiply and divide operators are there in the second row, and plus and minus is there in the third row. So it means that these operators will be given higher preference than addition and subtraction. So what we will do is, we'll solve b multiplied by c first and d divided by e. Now the question is, out of these two, which will be solved first? Okay, so here comes associativity. Associativity is from left to right. Associativity is from left to right. So left will be having the higher preference, and right will be having lower preference. So in this case, on left hand side, you can see multiplication operator. So it means that first the computer will calculate b into c, then it will calculate d divided by e. Okay, so let us suppose after calculating b into c, we got, let's say, f. Okay, and after calculating d divided by e, we got g. Okay, and in between we have negative sign, and here we have a plus. Okay, now let's look over here, which will be solved first. So in the third row, we have plus and minus, which are having the lowest preference. And now I just told you about associativity, which is from left to right. So first addition will be done, a plus f. After that, we will subtract it from g. Okay. But now, what if I want to calculate a plus b first and then another multiplication? So for that, we will increase its preference by including these brackets. So similarly, if I want to first subtract and then divide, so I will use these brackets. So bracket is having the highest preference. So first these two will be solved. After that, we'll divide and multiply. So this was all about precedence of operators. Okay. So now let's write a program. Now let's write a program. We will write a program to calculate. Just a second. Okay. So is my screen visible? Please say yes or no.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So now we are going to write a simple program because now we have the understanding of data types and operators and their precedence as well. So now we'll be writing a program to calculate the area of a triangle, which is very simple. And I will give you a task over here as well. So in order to calculate the area of a triangle, we need to know the base of the triangle because the formula is half into b into h, right? So we need to get the input from the user, that is what is the base and what is height, and then we can do our calculations. So let us use the data type which is float because the values can be in decimal form as well. So we'll use b, h, and a is for area, b for base, and h for height. Okay. And always remember, whatever variables that you are use, it should be meaningful. Now see out, and we want to write that enter base and height. Okay, enter base and height. So this message will be printed on the screen, and we want to get the input. So C in, and we want to insert something. This operator is what? Extraction operator. This will extract from the input buffer and put into the variables. So the variables are b. First I will take base, and then I will take height. Okay, so these are the inputs that we want to get. After that, I want to calculate the area. So area is a is equal to, I will perform the operations. First I will multiply b with h, which is the height. Okay, so now you can see I have put the brackets because now I will divide it by 2. So you can see if I will remove these brackets, then what will happen is I have to make the things very clear that which operation is going to be done first. Okay, now if I will remove these brackets, first let me remove the brackets. Now what will happen over here is, in this case, multiplication will be done, and after that division will be done. But if in case you have some other variables as well, so that would mean that this variable is divided by 2 and then it is multiplied with h. Okay, some other variables. So it's better to use these brackets, which will make it very clear that first this operation will be done, after that we will divide the things. So a will do its calculation. After that we want the output, so it will be c out, and we'll write area. Okay, and here we'll write a. So whatever is the value of a, that will be inserted into area, and this entire thing will be inserted into c out, and we'll get the answer on the screen. Okay, so let's run this program. And here the program is asking me enter base and height. So let me enter the base as 2 and height as 4. Okay, so area is 4 because half into base into height. So 1 by 2, 1 by 2 into 2 will get 2 will get cancelled and will be left with 4 only. So this is your answer. Okay, so this was a very simple program. Now you after this session you should try another program, to find the roots of a quadratic equation. When we will study these conditional statements, then you will be able to use the if statements. And also because we know that in order to find the roots of quadratic equation, we have three discriminant which is having three properties. If it is equal to 0, we get something with same roots. If it is greater than 0, we get real and distinct roots. And if it is less than 0, we get complex roots. Okay, so first today we are having lots of information about data types and operators, so you should give it a try, roots of quadratic equation. And when we will study conditional statement, again try it with the help of those conditions. Okay, so I hope the program is very much clear to you. So please say yes or no if you are clear with these things, so that we can move on to another topic. So is it clear? Please say, because I cannot see the chats.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now the next operator is bitwise operator. We should study bitwise operator now. Okay, and we'll understand all the operate symbols that we have. So bitwise operator, we have bitwise AND operator, bitwise OR operator, bitwise XOR operator, which is known as XOR or exclusive OR. Then we have bitwise NOT operator, then bitwise left shift and right shift. We'll do the calculations on all these to understand them better. Okay, so Just a second. Let me put it over here. Now, let us suppose that we have bit 1, okay? We have bit 2, we have bit 2, and we have, now here we want to do the calculations on bit 1 and bit 2. So I will, as and when we are using those operators, I will put them over in between these. Okay. Now, first understand that bitwise operator perform their operations on bits of the data. They do not perform their operations on entire data as a single piece. Okay, they perform on each and every bit. So whatever you write, you have to convert it into bits and then you have to perform the operations. So suppose that you have bit 1, bit 2, and you want to do some bitwise operation. So let us say your bit 1 is 0 and bit 2 is also 0. And here we want to do the AND. Okay, we are performing the operation bit 1 and bit 2. We are using this bitwise AND operator. So when bit 1 is 0, bit 2 is 0, your answer will be 0 because AND is similar to multiplication. So bit 1 is 0, bit 2 is 0, 0 into 0 will get you 0. Okay. Similarly, if you have this 0 and this as 1, your answer will be 0. Okay. And similarly, if you have 1, 0, your answer will be again 0. And if you have 1 and 1, so your answer will be 1. So it means that when you have bitwise AND, until and unless you have both the bits same, both the bits as 1, you will not get 1 as your answer. Okay, so this is clear, I think. Now let's have a look on bitwise OR. Bitwise OR. Now what happens in bitwise OR? You have both the bits 0 0. So OR is just similar to addition. So 0 plus 0 will get you 0. Okay, 0 plus 1 will get you 1. So in case of bitwise OR, if either of them is 1, you will get 1. Here in this case bit 1 is 1, so you will get 1. Now here in this case both of them are 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, so you should get 2. But in the last session I've told you, in bits binary we have only two values, 0 and 1. Okay, so we don't have any number to represent 2. So if you have anything different from 0, you will get 1. 1 represents true or high voltage. If you are studying electronics, then in that case higher voltage are represented by 1 and lower voltages are represented by 0. Okay, so this is how. So in OR operator, if either of them is 1 or both of them are 1, you will get 1. But in AND operator, in order to get 1, both of them have to be 1, otherwise you'll not get 1. Okay, now let us have a look on bitwise XOR operator. So what happens in XOR operator? Both of them are 0, your answer will be 0. One is 0, other one is 1, so your answer will be 1. This is 0, this is 1, this is 0, your answer will be 1. But both of them are over here is 1, your answer will be 0. So what is exclusive OR? XOR operator means that when, if you will have two different bits, two different values, only then you will get 1. Otherwise your answer will be 0. Otherwise your answer will be 0. So here we have 1 1, both the bits are 1, so your answer will be 0. Here both of them are 0, so answer is 0. But here we have different bits, so that is why you're getting 1. So this is the logic for bitwise XOR operator, exclusive OR operator. Okay, now let us understand bitwise NOT operator. Now this is a little bit tricky. So I'll tell you what is bitwise NOT operator. So for that, let us take an example. Let us say that you have variable x which is equal to 5 and you have a variable y. Okay. And you want to do a calculation which is y not x. You want to y is equal to not of x. Okay. You want to do y is equal to not of x. So you want to store the value in y, but that value should be not of x. So as I just told you that bitwise operators perform the operations on bits of the data. So your data here in this case is 5 and we have to perform on the bits of this 5. So let us first convert this 5 into binary form. So how can we write this x? So I have told you the conversion. So it will, in 8-bit, I will write it as 0 0 0 0 one more 0 1 0 1. Okay, so this is 8-bit representation. Okay, Now I want to perform not operation. So when we want to perform not operation, whatever value that you have, just invert it. So here in this case, I have 1, it will become 0. This 0 will become 1. This 1 will become 0. And all these zeros will convert into 1. This is the operation of not operator. Now, we are not done over here. Now, as I just told you in the when we were studying data types, I told you that as this is 8 bits, in case of 8 bits, this is the most significant bit. Now, most significant bit is used to store the sign. And here in this case, sign bit is 1, means it is on, it is active. And if it is active, means your number is going to be negative. So when it indicates that when you will perform not operator on your x variable, which is positive, your answer will become negative. From this we can see. So this one means whatever value that I am going to get, that is going to be negative. Now don't start calculating this, and because your value was 5 and now you will get a very huge number, this is not possible. This step will only tell you the sign. So in this step we get to know about, okay, the sign is going to be negative. Now what is that number? Okay, so for that I you should note this thing, that the negative numbers in C++ are represented into 2's complement. 2's complement. So if you want to get the positive number, you'll have to again take its complement. Okay, so when we applied not, see, I'm repeating everything once again. You have 5, you want to perform not on this, just convert it into binary, and you want to do the not operation. So wherever you see 1, convert it to 0, and all zeros to 1. So you did this, and you are seeing that in the last most significant bit, you have 1. It means the answer is going to be negative. So this step will tell you only the sign of the answer. So your answer will be negative. Now what is that answer? So take this number's complement. Its complement will be positive number, which is the original number only. So complement is convert 0 to 1 and 1 to 0. So what you will get? 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. Just take the complement of this. Wherever you see 0, convert it to 1. Wherever 1, convert it to 0. We are doing it for the second time. Okay. Now, in order to understand that number, what is that number? Just because see, the most significant bit is 1. So what we will do, it is on. So in order to know the magnitude of that number, we'll add 1 to the first bit, to the very first bit. So 1 plus 1 will become what? 2. But in binary, we don't have any character to represent 2. So we will write 0 and 1 is carried. Okay. Now 1 plus 0 will get you what? 1. Here we have nothing, so we'll get 1. And all the remaining zeros will come as it is. Okay. So when you do the complement second time, that will tell you the magnitude of your answer. So your answer is what? Now let's calculate this binary form into decimal form. So it is 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2. 2 power 2 is what? 4. So 4 plus 2 will get you what? 6. So this is equal to 6, value 6. And from the first step, when we did the complement first time, we are seeing 1 on the last most significant bit. It means the answer is going to be negative. So here we got 6. So your answer will be minus 6. So this was about not operator. So whenever you put not on some number, you have to follow this step. So it means that not of x is going to be minus 6. And when you will print the value of y, you will get minus 6 as your answer. Okay. So this was about not operator. This was about not operator. Okay, so where do we use this by bitwise operator? So bitwise operators are used for developing device drivers or making system applications, okay, or system tools. So there we use bitwise operators. Now let us look at these bitwise left shift and bitwise right shift. But first, let me know, did you understand bitwise not operator very clearly? Are you clear with it, or I should explain it once again? Please tell me. Is bitwise not clear to everyone?
No, it is clear. It was thoroughly explained. So
Okay.
no problem.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's understand bitwise left shift. Okay, bitwise left shift. So let me erase this, and because bitwise left shift and right shift is very interesting, there I will tell you one trick to solve the questions very quickly. Whenever you will get a question of bitwise left or right shift, you will be able to do it very quickly. Okay, so now Let us suppose that we have a variable x, which is again 5, the same question I'm using, and we have another variable y. Okay, data type can be anything. You can use it according to yourself, your requirements. Okay, so x is 5 and y is another variable, and I want to do the calculation. Y is equal to x left shift 1. See, why am I writing 1? You have to tell the computer that by how many bits you want to shift the number. You want to shift the bit, each bit, by how many places. So here I have written 1. So it means that I will shift each and every bit by one's place. Okay, so let us first convert this x into binary form. X is what? 5 in decimal form. Let us convert it into binary. So similarly, as in the previous question we did, so I'm writing in 8-bit representation. Okay, I'm writing in 8 bits representation. So it will be 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1. Because see, 2 power 0, 2 power, yeah, here we are having 2 power 0, 2 power 1, 2 power 2. So 4 plus 1 is equal to 5. Okay, so this is the conversion of decimal to binary. Okay, so now let us do the bitwise left shift by one's place. So first I will tell you the traditional method and then I will tell you the trick. So how do we do that? Do is, so shift this one to the left side by one's place. So this, shift this one over here and write 1 over here. Shift this 0 to this one's place. So you will get 0 over here. Shift this 1 to this place. You will get 1 over here. Similarly, shift this 0 to this place. Okay. So here I am having 2, 4, 5 zeros. So I'll simply write 5 zeros because shifting them will get me 5 zeros over here. Okay. Now this place is vacant because I shifted this one from its place to this. So this place is vacant. So what will be there? I will write 0 over there. Okay. That is clear. So now just calculate what is the number. This is all about left shift. Just we need to calculate the number. So it is 2 power 0. It is 2 power 1. I have in the last session, I've already told how to convert binary to decimal. So I'm directly doing it. So it is 2 power 2 and 2 power 3. Okay. So it is what? 8 plus 2 will get you what? 10. So your answer is 10. Okay. Now this was very easy to do because we had to shift by one place only. But just imagine if if in place of 1 I will write maybe 2 or maybe 5, it will be little bit difficult for me to shift the numbers, right? Or maybe 25. So it will become very difficult for me to shift the bits. So there is a trick. After this session, go and try it on your paper. Shift the bits by 1, then by 2, and then by 3. At max, do this 2, 3, and you will observe a pattern. And that pattern will be like this. When we shifted x by one place, answer is 10. Original value was 5. So can I say original value was 5, I multiplied it by 2 and we got 10. So similarly, when you will have to shift it by 2, so what you will have to do is, when you will have to shift it by 2, so there is a trick. Here you will observe the trick. That is, you will have to multiply it by 4 and your answer will be 20. Similarly, for 3, 4, 5, and so on. So what is that trick? So from here we can see that the trick is, if you have x variable or any variable and you want to shift on the left side by I places, then your formula is that original number that you have multiplied with 2 to the power I. 2 to the power I. So let us use it over in this question. Here we have 5. We want to shift it by one place. Okay, not 2, 5. We want to shift it by 1. So I is what? 1. I is what? 1. X is what? 5. So 5 into 2 power 1. 2 power 1. 2 power 1 is what? 2. 5 into 2 will get you what? 10. Now let's check it for 2. So it will be 5 into 2 power 2. It is 4. 5 into 4 will get you what? 20. And so on. Okay, now for right shift we number will reduce because you are shifting on the right side. So in that case you have the formula, same condition. You have x and you want to shift on the right side by I places. So your formula is x divided by 2 to the power I. Okay, this is the formula for right shift. So this was all about bitwise operator, left shift and right shift as well. So we have covered everything. Now the last topic for today's discussion, okay, that is enum and type def. What are enum and type def? Okay, so let me show it to you very quickly. Okay, let me get some more space over here. Okay, let me use this space. Now here we are discussing enum and type def. Enum, okay, enum means enumerator. Okay, now it is used to define your own data types, user defined data types you can define by this. Okay, but you can do so by using existing data types only. So let us say you have a list of departments of computer science, you have ECE, okay, you have let's say IT branch or IT department, and civil. Okay, and you are making some program where you have to rewrite these again and again. Okay, now these are string actually. So handling of string is a different method we will study in the coming session. But if you don't know about that, how can you use them? Okay, so instead of writing the complete word computer science, electronics and communication engineering again and again, these long terms, so we can do one thing, we can assign codes to them, and we can use those codes directly without worrying about handling of strings, because strings are handled in a different way. So what we do is there are two methods we can give the codes to these. Let us say I want to give them code 0, this to 1, this to 2, and this as 3, and I want to use these codes again and again. So how can I do that? So there are two methods. First method is you can write const. Okay, const, then int what data type you want to give, const int and the variable which is cs, and you can give them the code 1 or let's say 0, whatever code that you want to give. But doing this for n number of departments or n number of variables will be very hectic. Const int, now first let me tell you what is this const. Const means that you are making this variable a constant, and whatever value that you will assign to this variable, that will be a constant value. That will be a constant value. Now you will not be able to change that value in your program further. Okay, once you have assigned that. So const is a keyword which you can use to make any variable a constant. Okay, after that you will not be able to, because see, if I will write int a is equal to 5, and in the next line I write a is equal to 6, so a will take the value of 6. But after writing const, now I'm writing const int cs is equal to 0. Now I'm not able to change the value of cs. I cannot say cs is equal to 1. That will be invalid. That will give me an error. Okay, but yes, this is the method with which we can assign codes to each and every department or each and every variable. Now, but that is very hectic. So for that we have enum. And how can we use enum? Okay, so how can we use enum? So it is very easy. Let us say enum. Okay, let me write it. Okay, so you can write it like this. You will write enum, okay, and whatever variable that you want to use. Okay, so let's say we want to use a department. So let's give it a variable which is dept, and in curly braces we will write the values that we want. So we want cs, we want ece, and we want it, and we also want civil. Okay, and close these brackets. Now what happens is when you use the word enum and then the variable, whatever variable that you want to use, and after that you write this, then what happens is all these strings, that is cs, ece, it, and civil, they will be assigned value from 0. Cs will be 0, this will become 1, 2, and 3 automatically. You don't need to worry about them. You just need to write these once, and these will be assigned the values automatically. You don't need to assign these values like this. Okay, but what if you want to give cs a value of 1? You don't want to give cs a value of 0. You want to give it 1. So you can simply say cs is equal to 1. So next ece will get the value of 2 automatically. You don't need to assign ece is equal to 2. Just now let us suppose I want to give cs 1 and ec as 10, so I can do that as well. Now when you do that 10 and you don't assign anything to it, this will automatically take 11. Okay, so it means that whatever value you give over here, next will take the successive value. So here I have 10, is this will automatically take 11. Okay, and then you can use these values in your program wherever you want to use the code 012. So instead of that, you can now let me show you a program, okay, which in order to clear all your doubts, how are we going to use enum in our program? So let us say I'm just writing the main function. Okay, we have the main function, let us say like this. Okay, and okay, so here I have already made a data type which is department. So now I can directly write department dept d. Okay, this is small in letter. Okay, now from here you can understand. Now I can say d is equal to whatever, like cs. So in this case, what is happening is now the data type dept has become a data type. Now I don't need to worry about giving it a string variable, or let's say int or something. Okay, because cs is a string. I don't have any knowledge about string. So what I can do is we can make our own data type, which is DEPT, with the help of enum. And this DEPT is already having these values, and I can use them in our program. Now DEPT, this has become user defined data type. Okay, so like in other program we were having int was a data type. Now we are having DEPT. This has become a data type, and this is user defined data type. So with this uh, we can use enum in our program as and when we require. So similarly, we have another thing which is type def. Type def. Now, what is that type def? So I'll tell you that when we start writing writing programs, we beginners what do is that, as I just told you, that variable should be self-explanatory. If I'm using a variable to store roll numbers, I should use a variable roll number, so that when someone will read, he will directly get to know, okay, this is used to store the roll numbers. Okay, but most of the time in hurry, we use A, B, C, D, E, something like that. Or let's say I'm using a variable M1, let's say M2, M3, but I know that this was used for marks. And now let us suppose you are making a very huge program. So when I in a huge program, you will use variables of this kind, and after some days or few weeks, you will come and look at your program again. You yourself will not be able to identify that for what purpose you used M1 and M2. What is it? So in order to uh, you know uh, remove that confusion, we introduce we in C++ we have another functionality, that is type def. So what is type def? So whenever you're confused or you want to use small variables just like m1, m2, m3 for marks, you can, at the top of the program above int main, you can write type def. Okay, t should be small. T should be small. Now type def, this keyword. Now t should be small, it is auto correcting it. After that int, and then whatever um, variable that you want to use, which is marks, and then close it. Okay, so now what happens is this marks has become a data type. For marks, the data type is integer, but when you use this keyword type def, then this marks has become another data type, and now you can use this marks as a data type in your program. So how can I use this? So I can use this like this, marks marks, and then I can write m1, m2, m3. Now, although the variable is not explanatory, but the data type that I'm using, that is explanatory. So now if in future I want to remember that what was m1, m2, m3, I can scroll and I can see, okay, I made m1, m2, m3 as marks because data type itself is telling me they are used for storing marks. So although this type def does not, or enum does not make a program faster or something, but they make program more readable and more friendly. Okay, so this was all about today's lecture. We discussed everything. So I hope everything is clear. You don't have any doubts, and if you have, you can ask me right now. So I hope you enjoyed the today's session. So how was the session for today? Please, can anyone tell me? Or do you have any doubt? Any one of you can unmute and say.
It was not good at all.
Uh,
I'm actually kidding. It was actually great. It was
okay.
like I said before, it was thorough and it was neat. You were able to explain everything accordingly, and I didn't really mm, find any hurdles. I mean, that the things that I wasn't able to grasp. So
Mm.
it's an all go for me, and keep doing what you're doing, man. I really enjoyed it from my
Okay.
side. I don't know about the others.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, others, if you want to say something, you can unmute and say. Okay. Okay. So after this, I will give you a feedback form so you can say if you have any problem or how did you like the session, so you can say it in the form. Okay. So that's it from my side, and this was all about um today's session. So I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you very much. Now you can leave the session, and we'll meet you in the next session.